I still remember the exact sound my mother's voice made when she said those words. It was cold, hollow, like she was talking about a stranger and not her own son. The son she had held in her arms for 18 years. The son she had promised to protect forever. Ezra is no longer part of this family. That sentence still echoes in my mind, even now, years later, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I ended up standing in my own living room, surrounded by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, watching them choose inheritance money over my existence. It all started 3 days before my grandmother's funeral. My grandmother, Constance, was the only person in my family who truly understood me. She was 87 years old, sharp as a blade, and wealthy beyond what most people could imagine. She had built her fortune from nothing, starting with a small textile business that eventually grew into one of the largest fabric manufacturing companies in the region. By the time I was born, she had already retired and spent her days tending to her garden and writing in her leather-bound journals. While my parents, Vernon and Rosalind, were always busy counting their future inheritance, and my older brother Gideon was busy impressing everyone with his business degree. I was the one who actually spent time with grandmother. Every Sunday afternoon, I would sit with her on her porch, listening to her stories about struggle, survival, and staying true to yourself even when the world tries to break you. Ezra, she would say, holding my hand in her wrinkled fingers, you are different from them. You have my heart. Don't ever let anyone make you forget your worth. I never fully understood what she meant, not until that night. When grandmother passed away peacefully in her sleep, I felt like the only lighthouse in my life had suddenly gone dark. I cried for days. My parents, on the other hand, were already on the phone with lawyers, discussing the estate, the properties, the bank accounts. Gideon was calculating his share on a spreadsheet before grandmother's body had even been taken to the funeral home. I watched them, disgusted but silent. I told myself that people grieve differently. Maybe this was their way of coping. Maybe I was judging them too harshly. I was wrong. The reading of the will was scheduled for 3 days after the funeral. My father insisted that everyone be present, including my younger sister Beatrice, who had flown in from college. She was the only one who hugged me and asked if I was okay. She was the only one who seemed to remember that we had lost a person, not just gained an opportunity. The lawyer, a serious man named Aldrich Brennan, gathered us all in grandmother's old study. The room smelled like her perfume and old books. I could barely look at her empty chair without my chest tightening. My father sat at the head of the table, already positioned like the king about to receive his crown. My mother sat beside him, her face a mask of practiced grief. Gideon was checking his phone, probably texting his business partners about the upcoming fortune, and then Mr. Brennan began reading. Most of it was predictable. Grandmother left the company's shares equally divided among her 3 grandchildren, which meant Gideon, Beatrice, and me each received a significant portion. She left the main house to my father, her son. She left jewelry and personal items to my mother, but then came the final clause, and to my grandson Ezra, Mr. Brennan read, adjusting his glasses, I leave the entirety of my personal savings account, valued at approximately $4.7 million, along with the beach property in Clearwater. I do this because Ezra is the only one who loved me for who I was, not for what I owned. He is my heart. Silence, complete, deafening silence. I felt every pair of eyes in that room turn toward me. My father's face went from confusion to red-hot anger in seconds. My mother's mask cracked, revealing something ugly beneath. Gideon slammed his phone on the table. This is ridiculous, my father said, standing up. There must be some mistake. Mr. Brennan shook his head. I assure you, this will was drafted, reviewed, and finalized by Mrs. Constance herself. It is legally binding. She was old, my mother hissed. She wasn't in her right mind. We can contest this. The will was drafted 4 years ago, Mr. Brennan replied calmly. Mrs. Constance was evaluated by a physician at the time and declared fully competent. Gideon turned to me, his eyes blazing. You manipulated her. You wormed your way into her good graces so you could steal from us. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I never asked her for anything, I said, my voice shaking. I didn't even know about this. Don't play innocent, my father snapped. You always spent time with her, filling her head with lies about us. You turned her against her own family. I loved her, I shouted, standing up. That's all I did, I loved her. Can you say the same? The room fell silent again. Nobody answered. Because we all knew the truth, that night I thought the worst was over. I was wrong again. I went to my room in my parents' house, planning to pack my things and move into grandmother's beach property. I needed space. I needed to grieve properly, away from people who seemed incapable of human emotion. But around midnight, I heard voices coming from the living room, hushed, urgent voices. I crept down the hallway and stood behind the door, listening. "We have to do this," my father was saying. "If we let Ezra keep that money, he'll never need us again." "He'll cut us off. What are you suggesting, Vernon?" my mother asked. "Aldrich mentioned something about a legal loophole," my father continued. "If we can prove Ezra is mentally unstable, if we can get him committed or declared unfit, the inheritance reverts to the next of kin, which is me." My blood ran cold. "Dad, that's insane," Beatrice's voice interrupted. "You're talking about destroying Ezra's life for money." "Stay out of this, Beatrice," Gideon snapped. "You're too young to understand. This is about protecting the family's wealth. By betraying our own brother," Beatrice shot back, "grandmother chose him for a reason. Maybe because he's the only decent one among us." I heard a slap. My heart stopped, then Beatrice's crying. "You will not speak to your father that way," my mother said coldly. "Ezra has always been the problem in this family. He never fit in. He never tried to contribute. He just floated along, wasting his time with that old woman. That old woman," Gideon added, "was supposed to secure our futures. Instead, she gave everything to the least deserving person in this family." I couldn't listen anymore. I stepped into the room. They all turned to look at me. My father's face showed no shame, no guilt, just cold calculation. "How long have you been standing there?" he asked. "Long enough," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "Long enough to know exactly what kind of people you are." My mother stood up. "Ezra, you need to understand, this isn't personal. This is about fairness." "Fairness?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Grandmother worked her entire life for that money. She chose to give it to me. And your response is to have me committed, to lie about my mental health so you can steal what she wanted me to have." Gideon stepped forward. "You don't deserve it. You've never worked a day in your life. You've never contributed to this family. You're nothing." "I'm nothing," I said, feeling tears burn behind my eyes. "I was the only one who visited her in the hospital when she broke her hip. I was the only one who called her on her birthday. I was the only one who sat with her when she was scared of dying alone." "Where were all of you?" Nobody answered. "That's what I thought," I said quietly. "Grandmother knew exactly what she was doing. She knew all of you only cared about her money. And she chose to give it to the one person who actually loved her." My father's face hardened. "Then let me make this clear, Ezra. If you don't sign over that inheritance to the family trust, you are no longer welcome here. You will not be part of this family." I looked around the room, at my mother, who wouldn't meet my eyes, at Gideon, who was practically smiling at the ultimatum, at Beatrice, who was crying silently in the corner, a red mark on her cheek, and I made my decision. "Then I guess I'm no longer part of this family," I said. I turned and walked to my room. I packed a single bag with clothes, some photographs, and grandmother's last journal, which she had given me weeks before she passed. Then I walked out the front door into the cold night air without looking back. That was 5 years ago. In those 5 years, I used grandmother's money to finish my education. I studied architecture, something I had always been passionate about but was told was a waste of time by my father. I traveled to the places grandmother always wanted to see but never could. I donated a significant portion to charities she had supported quietly for decades. And I built a life, a real life, with real people who loved me for who I was. I didn't hear from my family. Not a single call, not a single message. I was dead to them, and honestly, I was okay with that. Some wounds are too deep to heal. But then last month, I received a letter. It was from my sister Beatrice. She had tracked me down through mutual friends. The letter was 3 pages long, stained with what looked like tears. She told me everything that had happened since I left. My father's business had failed. Gideon's investments had collapsed. My mother had developed severe anxiety and rarely left her room. The family was falling apart financially and emotionally, but that wasn't why she was writing. Beatrice told me that my father was dying, cancer, stage 4, he had maybe 2 months left. And he wanted to see me. I didn't respond right away. I let the letter sit on my desk for a week. Every time I looked at it, I felt the old wounds open up again. The betrayal, the abandonment. The night they chose money over their own son. But I also remembered grandmother's words about staying true to yourself, about not letting the world break you. I realized that staying away forever would break me, not because they deserved my forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. So I went. I walked into my father's hospital room on a Tuesday afternoon. He looked nothing like the powerful man who had threatened to destroy my life. He was thin, pale, connected to machines that beeped in a steady rhythm. When he saw me, he started crying. You came, he whispered. After everything I did, you came. I stood at the foot of his bed, not moving closer. I didn't come for you, I said honestly. I came for me. I came to close this chapter. He nodded slowly, tears streaming down his face. I don't expect forgiveness, Ezra. I don't deserve it. I was blind. Blinded by greed, by pride, by stupid, meaningless things. I threw away my son for money. Money that's all gone now. I said nothing. Your grandmother was right about you, he continued. She always said you were the best of us, the only one with a real heart. I was too proud to see it. And now I'm dying, and the only thing I regret is that night. That terrible night, I finally moved closer. I looked at this man who had given me life and then tried to take everything from me, and I felt something unexpected. Pity, not love, not forgiveness. But pity, I hope you find peace, Dad, I said quietly. I really do. He reached for my hand, and after a long moment, I let him take it. I already found mine, he whispered. The moment you walked through that door. He died 3 weeks later. I was there holding his hand. At the funeral, I saw my mother and Gideon for the first time in 5 years. They looked at me with shame, with regret, with something that might have been apology, but they said nothing. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. Beatrice stood beside me the entire time. She was the only one who had chosen love over money that night, and she was the only one I could still call family. As I left the cemetery, I touched grandmother's journal in my pocket. Inside, on the last page, she had written something just for me. Ezra, money comes and goes. But the people who love you for your heart, they are the true inheritance. Never forget that. I never did. And that is the story of the night my own family chose money over me. It broke me. It nearly destroyed me, but in the end, it taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Family isn't about blood. It's about who chooses you when choosing you costs them something. Grandmother chose me, Beatrice chose me, and now every day I choose myself. That's the only inheritance that truly matters.